The Simpsons. If you either if you hate it or you love it, you got to agree that The Simpsons throughout its time of airing, which yeah, I'm only on current season 13, and of course with the recent news of Fox renewing the season to a 35 and a 36 season, it just shows that The Simpsons is not dying anytime soon. And there have been times where The Simpsons actually did predictions, actually predicted in episodes that actually came true, just so happened to came true in the real world. That it's like the makers of The Simpsons just traveled back into or traveled to the future and actually it's like with all these guesses that came true. And I'm going to be going through some, just some, because there's a lot, trust me, there's a lot that the Simpsons predicted that came true, but I want to go through just a couple. And again, these are some predictions that the Simpsons made before they even happened in real life, that the Simpsons just predicted and just so happened to be actually real. The first one is 9/11. Yes, 9/11. The terrorist attacks of the World Trade Center. And this so happens to go back from the first episode of season 9, Homer versus New York City, where he has to get his car from, or trying to get this car from New York, getting his car back from New York that has a boat on it, and it just so happens to be parked at the World Trade Center. Yes, this is a pre 9/11 episode because again, this episode aired years before we even knew about 9/11, of course. And again, the World Trade Centers are there, and they're part of the plot too. Homer having to use the restroom and running into the World Trade Centers to go to the restroom, only to find out that one of the tower's restrooms are out of stock, so he has to run to the other tower to use the restroom. And again, this episode was removed. This episode was actually banned for years until actually being back on the air. And of course, obviously being having the Twin Towers removed, or the scenes revolving around the Twin Towers. Yeah, they actually cut, on some airings, they actually cut the scenes with Homer in the Twin Towers. Anything related to the Twin Towers, pretty much. And again, because it was a reference, or not necessarily a reference, but again, people may have gotten offended because, you know, it referenced one of the most horrible times that you can think of that has happened of the World Trade Centers. And again, Turning Red. Turning Red, the Pixar movie that Mr. Enter, John, aka the mysterious Mr. Enter, did claim that he didn't like the movie because it didn't mention 9/11. Yeah, the movie was set in Canada a year after 9/11, and he actually claimed that he was upset of how it didn't mention 9/11 in a children's movie. But again, in his recent videos, that he actually apologized, and he actually said that it was one of the most stupidest takes he have ever said. So yeah, he actually did not know why he said about the whole 9/11 and Turning Red. Again, if you watched Mysterious Mr. Enter, then you would know exactly what he's going through. But yeah, he has apologized in one of his recent newer videos, talking on his top 10, worst Mr. Enter videos that he made. And of course, that was one of them. His of his review of Turning Red just because of that take he made of him saying that 9/11 was not mentioned in Turning Red, even though the movie was set in 2002, a year after 9/11, and it was set in Canada. And, of course, they did not mention it. But again, he did recorrect himself and did actually claim that it was one of his very bad takes, that he just hated to have that take. I mean, you can't blame him either, right? But again, SpongeBob on Just One Bite, the SpongeBob episode Just One Bite was, the latest scene where we see Squidward getting set on fire and the Krusty Krab with the gas traps, and the match, and, him getting burned up and screamed in agony. Apparently, that scene was cut due to, 9/11, of what people say. It was cut due to 9/11, because the episode Just One Bite originally aired a month after 9/11. Yeah, it was October of 2001. A year after 9/11 happened. And again, that scene was deemed to be cut due to 9/11 references of the building on fire and screaming in agony that Squidward was doing. And again, lots of other medias, lots of other stuff has cut or removed stuff mentioned to 9/11. But especially going back on the Simpsons topic. People would claim that The Simpsons predicted 9/11. People would predict. People would maybe say that The Simpsons predicted 9/11 because of having the World Trade Centers. I mean, in the episode, we don't see no planes crashing into the buildings, of course. But people would say that this episode was released years and years and years before we even knew 9/11 was actually, or before the whole event, of course. But that is at number one I definitely had to mention. And, yeah, no wonder Homer hates New York City. Number two, the Donald Trump election. Yes, next. The Simpsons predicted Donald Trump to run for president way before Donald Trump actually ran for president. Yes, the Simpsons were the ones that predicted Donald Trump to run. And in a season that I'm not quite on yet, but there is an episode where he actually becomes president and gets elected. And we see, of course, Donald Trump. And, yeah, The Simpsons predicted him becoming president. Even before Donald Trump actually became president. But The Simpsons predicted he would become president. And lo and behold, he actually did become president. Lo and behold. The Simpsons team were right once again. That I just find really funny that they actually predicted Donald Trump to run for president, and years after, he actually runs for president. And finally, for this video, is the COVID pandemic. Yes, the COVID pandemic. People claim that The Simpsons also may have predicted the coronavirus pandemic. Because on a season 32 episode, there is scenes that have the people of Springfield wearing COVID mask. Yes, COVID mask, social distancing, and showing their world in a pandemic-like setting. And of what most likely getting vaccines as well. So yeah, The Simpsons have them wearing COVID mask. And again, this episode was made apparently in 2020 as well. This episode was made, this season 32 episode, again, it'll take a while for me to get to that episode, of course, into reviewing, but apparently this episode was in the somewhere before COVID even began, pretty much. Yeah, like COVID before it began, like, destroyed the world and destroyed everybody's minds. But yeah, I mean, there was a scene. There was a scene in an episode that I did review where these Chinese people sneeze this disease into boxes and getting people sick, which is claimed to be, of course, well, obviously, the pandemic. And again, even from a scene that says 2021, January 20th, 2021, and Springfield is all on fire, and buildings are destroyed, and everybody's panicking, which thankfully, that is something that did not happen. Like, everything on fire, and everybody thinking it's the, people thinking it's the end of the world or the rapture, right? Thinking that it's the rapture or something. And again, Homer not being the one wearing a mask, pretty much. Which, yeah, I would actually be on Homer's side. I hate vaccine mask, or I hate the pandemic mask. I hate everything about the pandemic. So, actually seeing Homer, again, I haven't seen the episode, but what I've seen from screenshots and stuff to make this video, Homer actually does not have a mask on. So, yeah, I actually think he's on the right track. But, yeah, of what it just seems, people are claiming that, like, after all the predictions, like Donald Trump running for president, that came true, 9/11, and of what it looks, the pandemic as well, that the Simpsons predicted, and lots of other stuff that the Simpsons predicted as well. Trust me, there are so many other things that the Simpsons did predict that were not mentioned in this video. Lots of other people made videos talking about references and predictions that actually came true. But yeah, let me know what y'all think in the comments section down below. What's one were y'all most intrigued or most shocked by to actually say come true that the Simpsons predicted? Let me know in the comments section down below, and we'll catch y'all next one.